Hello and welcome to Poetry in Style. So today we're gonna talk about a poet called Billy Collins. If you don't know, Billy Collins is what I would call a modern poet. He was born on the 22nd of March 1941 in New York and still lives to this day. I don't know much, to be honest, about Billy Collins, but he has this way of writing that, as I say, I would describe as modern poetry. What is modern poetry? I'm not an expert on the subject, but when you don't know poetry very well, and when you think about poems, you think about a certain meter, a certain rhythm, you think about rhymes. But modern poetry usually doesn't use that. They have free verses, which I think is fine, but there's no rhyme, they are like sentences, and to be completely honest with you, I find it hard sometimes to fully understand. So I thought it was interesting to talk about that and what modern poetry means, because it seems to me that when it comes to poetry, a lot of these modern poets had this idea on writing things in a certain way and not following the rules of the old times, going against the idea that we have of poetry, which is fine because I believe it's interesting to look at poetry in another way and try to turn it on its head, to look at it and do something different than what we usually do. The problem I have with modern poetry, it's usually that most modern poets write poetry in a very similar way. Pretty good. Anyways, I wanted to discuss that with you and find out what you think of modern poetry. Maybe if you're not that much into poetry, into old poetry, into the, let's say, the Shakespearean poems, maybe you prefer the new style of writing, the new modern style. Or maybe, like me, you think, if I may give my opinion, I believe that it's always good to take an art form and try to change it, find another way of doing it. However, again, from what I have observed, a lot of modern poets write poetry the same way. Anyways, I didn't want to talk about Billy Collins only with the intention of criticizing what I see as modern poetry, but I found a poem that I saw as interesting, and it's called Introduction to Poetry. I'm gonna show you the poem, we're gonna analyze it and find out what we can learn from that poem. But before that, let's take a sip of coffee. It's actually pretty good. Introduction to Poetry. I asked them to take a poem and hold it up to the light, like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe its way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski and cross the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore, but all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. It's quite something. It's quite something. It's a peculiar way of looking at poetry. Peculiar, yet interesting. Interesting because when you think about it, there's something, first of all, obviously we look at the style. As I say, this is a very modern style. There's very free verse, there's no rhyme, and there's not so much focus on rhythm. Or maybe I missed it. If I missed it, let me know. That doesn't mean, however, that it's not an interesting text, because it is interesting. It says something interesting. A lot of people often, when I talk about poetry, tell me, to my great displeasure and sadness, that they don't like poetry, or that not very interesting in the medium, sorry. And I do understand the reason why they are not interested. Because the way it is taught in school is very dull. The teachers ask them to learn poems by heart, to recite them in front of the whole class, and they start analyzing them. Analyzing every single word. This means that, and this means that, and that refers to that word, that echoes to that word, and that word says that, and the author meant that. When they don't know, again, as if they were torturing this poor poem. You know, they were torturing, beating this poem to a pulp to get a confession out of it. Sorry, I got carried away. And that's not good. That's not good. No, I mean, I'm trying to look at it that way. Indeed, sometimes they go too far. And indeed, I don't feel it is in favor of the art of poetry when those teachers go that far. And I think that when it comes to art in general, you need to be able to appreciate it for what it is. I don't think you always need to analyze it in its very minute details. Nevertheless, if you want to do it, if somehow a poem inspires you, why not analyze it? Why not try to find out what it means? Why not try to find out what a certain rhythm means to you? You can think about a poem of Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, for example, which is a poem that has been analyzed and analyzed many times. And some people apparently got it wrong. But it's part of the beauty of that poem that people got it wrong in the first time, and that they had their own realization, their own understanding of that poem. But that actually the poem probably means something else. It's part of the beauty of it that a poem remains alive because we make so many videos on the poem. And it's not just about poetry that we do that. Look, I love video games, for example. How many videos have been made about certain video games? You know, look at Breath of the Wild. You can find many videos to tell you what the silence, the silence of the video game actually means, what it conveys. These big open spaces, because there's a lot of poetry in that game. And I think it's beautiful when a video is well made. So when it comes to that poem, and to the viewpoint of Billy Collins, while I understand it, and I think it's right to a degree, the problem I have with that poem and with the message of that poem is that it takes it to the other extreme. So we go to school and we have teacher over analyzing the poems instead of asking a student, you know, what does that poem inspire you? What does it make you feel? Nothing. All right, nothing. Another poem. Maybe this one is simpler. What? Oh, well, you know, it makes me feel good. Good, that's it. We don't need more. But sometimes, why not give a chance? Why not enjoy the process of trying to find out what the poem means? You can take it too far, but you can take the other extreme too far. Because there's a reason, at the end of the day, there's a reason why we create art. And I believe, you can take the medium of cinema and you find many videos on the study of a certain character, the way it is portrayed, the way it is written, and it can be very beautiful. Now, obviously, the purpose of cinema is to go to the cinema and enjoy it, enjoy the moment. And we should not always overanalyze the movies. We should not be so obsessed with this analysis that we cannot enjoy the movie for what it is. But if we become obsessed with the idea that, that we cannot try to just analyze a poem, because there's a reason why we do what we do. And if somebody comes and really gets to understand the meaning, the layers behind the words, there's something beautiful about it. And that's all I want to say. So there you go. I hope you have enjoyed it, and have a good day.